Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday afternoon. I'm Brian Manning, a financial advisor here for Pinnacle Financial Partners in Nashville, Tennessee. And thankfully, I am joined by Lane Rhodes, our resident SBA expert. And Lane and her team have spent a lot of time reviewing all of the PPP information for this round of funding. And we've done several webinars so far. And we're here with you today to answer your questions, to give you all the updates that we have, and just to walk through how Pinnacle is going through the process with our clients for the second round of PPP funding. A couple of housekeeping items for you. If you would please use the Q&A function there on your screen to submit questions. We'll be happy to get to those after Lane makes some opening remarks. We'll monitor those. There'll be several people in the webinar with us today, so it'll be challenging to get to every single question. And to be honest, there's still some information that we're unclear on. So we may take your question and follow up later with some information. That's a great time to point you to our website. If you'll go to pnfp.com/PPP, all of the information about this round of funding. If you need to do a first draw, if you didn't participate last year and you're doing a first draw of PPP funding, that information is there. And we continue to update all of our new and information on that site. So please check back there regularly. If you have a very specific question that's particular to your business or your application specifically, we would ask you to speak with your financial advisor directly. They are ready and willing to listen to you. And if you've got a question that they can't answer directly, we've got a team of people who are prepared to help them answer those questions. So just know that they're ready to help you walk through your application and also answer those questions. We got an update just before coming into the webinar today, and we do understand that we've had our first handful of loans approved at the SBA, which is exciting. So far in the process, we're a few days in. We've had about 4,300 applications submitted to Pinnacle. And from what we understand, it's taking 4 or 5 days to actually go through the entire full process to get to the SBA and to actually get an SBA approval. So I think that helps with expectations. This is a little different than last year where it was fast and furious and loan applications were coming in and we were pushing them through. And sometimes it was a matter of hours before we were receiving full approval. And there's a lot more scrutiny that's going on at the SBA with this round of funding. They want to make sure that all of the information is accurate, want to make sure that the applicants actually need these funds and that the information that they submitted is accurate. So it's just taking a little bit longer. We want to make sure that when you send us an application that it's complete and it's thorough and that it's ready to go to the SBA so that once it's there, there's no issues and we don't have to follow back up with you for anything and you'll get an easy approval. So I think that's what we know right now. Lane, I'll bring you in and ask for you to give us your latest updates on what you've heard so far.
Yeah, well, literally, Brian, as you were talking, I just got an email update from SBA on something having to do with the 72 NAICS codes and some issues they maybe problems that they're having when people are submitting emails. So I'll read through that later and let you guys know what the update on that is. But as you can tell, I mean, this is very similar to what we experienced under the first round of PPP. As we get into this, as we get applications, as the SBA is processing those applications, issues are coming up that we're having to get addressed. And this process is very different from first round. There is a component of this where you have to show a revenue reduction to be able to qualify. There's the fact that if you do have a NAICS code 72, you qualify for a higher loan amount than if you have a different NAICS code. So there's several different things that are different from PPP round 1 and this round 2 that are taking longer to get these applications processed. And I'm seeing questions pop up right now, Brian, that people submitted their applications on Tuesday morning. They haven't heard back. That is because SBA is taking several days to process these right now. So it's not going to be as quick as it was the first go around. I would expect for people, once you submit your loan application, for it to be under review with the bank and SBA for at least a week. So give us, a good 5 business days to kind of get everything processed. I got some information from SBA back on Monday morning, and that was before the portals even opened up on Tuesday. And that was those small community banks that were doing SBA loans, those ones that had assets of less than $1 billion, they got to do PPP round 2 a little bit faster than some of the larger banks. And so those numbers came in that about 60,000 PPP applications actually came into SBA for about $5 billion in funds, and they're still processing through those before they even get to the ones that were submitted starting Tuesday morning when they opened it up to all the banks. So as you can tell, 5 billion isn't a ton of money that's gone out the door already in the program. It really has been open a week now to the smaller lenders and then just open to the big lenders on Tuesday. But I think it is going to take a lot longer for these funds to go out than the first round that we saw, just because there is this processing time with SBA. SBA is truly reviewing the application before we can send you the documents for approval, and that was different from the first round. On the first round, it was just blanket. If the bank got it, processed the application, it was automatically approved with SBA. And for this round of PPP, there's several boxes that have to be ticked, and SBA has to review those before your loan's truly approved. So that is a very big difference with this PPP round 2, and I think part of the reason that we're seeing the money not going out the door as fast as it did under the round 1.
Well, Lane, I know one of the consistent questions that we continue to receive and have people asking us about is the revenue reduction and being able to demonstrate that, and what's important to know and what documentation they need to include. Could you give us the latest information on what you know about that aspect of this round of PPP funding and what our applicants need to know about it?
Yeah, so SBA did a really good job, and we're happy we got this early in the process. On our call last week, I think I told you right while we were having that call, SBA submitted some updates right after that call. So last week, pretty much Thursday, we got a really wonderful document from SBA where they went through exactly how they define that 25% reduction in gross receipts. They went through how to calculate that reduction for just about every single business type. And so I, won't bore you guys or waste your time with exactly how to calculate your 25% reduction for every business that's out there. But I think I had read to you guys early on in one of our earlier webinars kind of how IRS defines gross receipts, and that's exactly what SBA did end up using for how they define gross receipts. So their answer for a for-profit business of exactly what you're going to use to define your gross receipts is going to be any revenue that you received or accrued during that calendar year from sales of production of service, interest, dividends, rents, royalties, fees, or commissions, reduced by returns and allowances, but excluding any net capital gains or losses. These terms carry the definition used and recorded by the IRS. So this is the IRS's definition. The SBA is using that same definition. And so gross receipts don't include taxes that would be collected, so such as sales tax or your employment taxes that you're paying. You don't include that in your number. You also don't include your PPP money in that. So you would not include any PPP money that you got. Any transactions that are foreign transactions from foreign affiliates, they don't include in those. So a really good definition there of what is gross receipts for a for-profit business. Now, nonprofits are a little different, but same kind of concept. So gross receipts for a nonprofit are going to be gross amounts received as far as your contributions, your annual gifts, grants that you received. So you're going to want to be able to show a reduction in, either grant money that you got or your contributions that you got. Or if you're a nonprofit that actually has a business activity similar to a for-profit business where you have earned income that you get, it would be a reduction in those gross sales receipts from those business activities. And then gross investments received from investment income, such as dividends. So a lot of times a nonprofit may be family fund that gives out money to other nonprofits, and the main way that they earn income is based off of interest and dividend income from monies that they have invested. So you would want to show a gross reduction in that investment income and interest income that you received. So that's right there, just their definition of the gross receipts. I did want to clarify, because I do keep getting this question a lot, Brian, and that's around the quarters. So you only have to show a reduction in your gross receipts for one quarter, but that is a true calendar year quarter. So January, February, March, that's first quarter, and so on. Those are the quarters that you're going to want to use. So you wouldn't be able to just put, random quarters together. So say February was your worst month and you wanted to start your quarter off in February and have February, March, April be quarter one. That's not the way the SBA is looking at this, but they did give us, their best documentation to provide to us to prove that gross reduction. And that is basically kind of in line with what we had already told business owners. We really need to see quarterly financial statements. So you would want to provide us, so if you're using quarter 2 of 2020 that shows your biggest drop in reduction, and you can prove that 25% reduction in the second quarter, you would give us your quarterly financial statements from that second quarter 2020, compare those to the same quarterly financial statements from 2019, and that would easily meet the SBA's requirement there. If you're a business that does not have quarterly financial statements, it does say that you can use your monthly bank statements. But if you do that, what you're really going to have to do is you must annotate on those so that the bank knows what we're looking at. You just can't send us over your January, February, March bank statements for first quarter and compare those to first quarter of 2019. We need to know what we're looking at. So we need to know, you're going to have to highlight and annotate what your sales are and your revenues that's coming in off of those. So it's going to be a little bit harder and going to be more work on your end. So obviously the easiest form is going to be providing those financial statements if you have true profit and loss statement financial statements that you can provide. If you don't, then you can do the bank statements. You can also do your IRS tax filings if you do quarterly or annual tax filings. So that would be an easy way to prove that 25% reduction as well. But those are just some of the highlights from this most recent interim final ruling that SBA put out to us. Another change that they did clarify, Brian, which I was really excited about, because we deal with a lot of businesses that change hands in SBA. And we've seen that a lot over the pandemic, that business owners have made a decision to either sell their business or have a change in ownership that might help them be structured better to weather this storm and get through the pandemic. And so if you had a business that changed ownership, which means the business is under a new operating company that is established after February 15th, the way we originally read the rules is those companies would not have been eligible for these PPP funds. But SBA did come back and clarify and said, no, even though that business entity wasn't in operation as of February 15th, 2020, the primary operating company that they purchased was. So as long as they can prove documentation that that business that they bought that changed hands after February 15th was in fact in business prior to February 15th, they're still eligible for PPP money. If they got PPP Round 1, that business that was being sold, then they would be applying for PPP Round 2. It is going to take a little bit more work on our part at Pinnacle, because obviously if we did that PPP Round 1 loan, we did that under the tax ID number of the company that was sold, and now there's a new tax ID number. So you definitely would need to get with your financial advisor, have them input all of your new information, because it's going to be like a new client going into the system, but it would still be eligible for PPP Round 2. So some good changes. Like I said, normally when SBA comes out with these changes, it's to clarify something and hopefully make it easier for us to process these loans rounds. And so those changes were really good changes that I think are helping to make this program go a little bit further and truly help the businesses that are needing it right now.
Yeah, that's all helpful stuff, Lane. I know one of the questions that we get is about documenting the reduction in income, and it's probably a good time to talk about the differentiation at $150,000. That at this point, with how we're processing applications is for loan amounts less than $150,000, our applicants don't have to provide the documentation to demonstrate their reduction in revenue from year over year. They will need it at time for forgiveness, and they'll need to know those amounts, but we're not requiring the documentation on the front end. For loan amounts over $150,000, they will need to provide that documentation. So they do need to have it in order. So I think that's important for people to know and to understand. Is there anything else on that they need to know about?
Well, so I think it's good in this most recent interim final ruling, the SBA addressed that as well, and they let us know as the banks that if they're applying for 150,000 or more and they didn't include that documentation that shows their 25% reduction, that's one of those instances where the application will be rejected by SBA. So that is something that SBA is looking at when we send them over to them. The number of employees is also a strange one, Brian, that they've come back to us on a few applications and potentially questioned whether or not they had less than 300 employees. So that is the number to be eligible for this round two. They're wanting to hit the smaller businesses. And so you've got to be able to show that you have less than 300 employees. And so we're hoping that is one of the gray areas that we need some more information on. But they were very clear with us that, you know, if you're applying for less than 150, you don't need to provide that documentation now. You will need to have it ready prior to applying for forgiveness. So they made that clear as well. In order to apply for forgiveness, you've got to get that documentation put together. So it's not that they're waiving that from you having to ever have it. There's not going to be like a fast track forgiveness process where you're never going to have to prove that you had that reduction. You will have to prove that reduction when you come back and apply for forgiveness, but we just won't need to collect that on the upfront piece. But if you're applying for more than 150, you definitely need to have those ducks in a row now once your application gets submitted, because SBA will be asking for that.
Let's see. Looks like somebody had a question about negative revenue on an application, asking about it taking a negative number on the application. Lane, I'm not sure I've run into that question yet, or that issue with negative revenue. So is that something that you've run into, or do you have some guidance for Rebecca on that?
Yeah, I haven't run into that with a particular person, but the interim final ruling does address that. So one of the things that they do talk about is, you know, if you're a pre-revenue business, meaning you haven't started generating revenue yet, you might still be in business, you know, product development. Those aren't eligible for this because they never showed a revenue to be able to show a drop in revenue. And that's kind of the same concept with if you were a business that last year you didn't have revenue that came in, it's hard to have a reduction in that. If you only had expenses and you didn't generate any sort of sales, then you can't show that reduction in gross receipts. Kind of same thing for if you're a 1099 contractor and your 1099 has a zero balance or even a negative. Sometimes you might have had expenses for something and you never were able to get the revenue that came in from that job. Unfortunately, the way it reads in this interim final ruling, where they did a really good job of addressing and showing the calculations, they say that you're not eligible for this round of PPP, this round two, because the round two must show that reduction in gross receipts. So if you didn't have sales to start with, then it's really hard to, you know, you mathematically can't have a reduction if you're starting at zero to begin with. So that's unfortunate, but that is what it is for this round.
Well, Lane, people might find this hard to believe, but you actually do more than just PPP information discovery and providing that to people. What are some of the other programs that the SBA has going on through this period that people need to know about?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great point. The PPP program isn't the only program that's out there right now. So there are other SBA loan programs. We don't offer the EIDL loan at the bank because that's done directly by SBA, but that's another great resource for business owners. So if you did need working capital funds to keep your business afloat during COVID, you can apply for the EIDL program. The SBA also has some other loan programs that we do offer here at Pinnacle. Their 7A SBA loan program and their 504 loan program are two programs that we offer here at Pinnacle. And right now the SBA is paying the government guarantee fees on those. And so that's the biggest upfront closing cost with doing an SBA loan. And the government's paying those for the borrower right now. And then they're also making 6 months of loan payments on those new SBA loans up to $9,000 a month. So if you've got a loan payment that's $10,000 a month, you'd subtract $9,000 from it, and then you'd only owe $1,000 for your first 6 months. Now they did set aside money for this, and once that money runs out, it runs out. They might replenish it, but we just don't know. So that 6 months of payments is only good until that pool of money runs out. So you may close on a loan, say, at the end of March, and then the funds run out in April, and you would have only gotten 1 month of loan payments. But we're hopeful that those funds will last a long time. We also have several clients here at Pinnacle that already had an SBA loan with us for their business. The SBA is making another round of loan payments on those existing SBA loans as well. So if you're an existing client here at Pinnacle and you have an SBA loan, you're eligible for 3 more months of payments by SBA, making your actual principal and interest loan payment for you each month. We'll contact you. We'll do all the paperwork for that, so you don't need to reach out to us directly. But that is wonderful that they're going to be doing that. They are capped again at that $9,000 a month, so it's not the full loan payment if your loan payment is more than $9,000. But that's still a huge benefit. I mean, $9,000 for another 3 months of payments on an existing SBA loan is a really nice gift for doing a government guaranteed loan with Pinnacle.
Well, Lane, I think all that's very helpful. I think as we wrap up today, I think if you were just a little bit late in joining us, a few of the things we talked about at the top of the webinar is that so far Pinnacle has received about 4,300 applications. We're working through those. We understand from the SBA, from some guidance they've put out, is there's a lot more scrutiny with this round of PPP funding than previously. So we want to make sure that all the applications are in great order before they go to the SBA, so that they have a smooth process once they get there and it all works out well. We have had a handful of loans approved here at Pinnacle, but there's a lot that still have to go through the entire process. And so the expectation that we would set with you is that it's going to take at a minimum 4 to 5 days to work through the entire process here at Pinnacle and then on to the SBA. And then I think Lane shared early in the webinar that as of Monday, through the really small bank fundings, there had been about $5 billion of the 280 something billion that has been funded. And so there's no rush or panic that the money's going to run out anytime soon. We do encourage you to get your ducks in a row and get your application submitted to us, and we'll work through it as quickly as we can. But it's not as fast and feverish as it was this time a year ago. Lane, what else would you offer our participants this afternoon before we wrap up?
Well, I would just remind people, I know I brought this up on our last call, Brian, and I know some people may be getting worried if they submitted their application to us first thing Tuesday morning and they haven't heard back. And so their gut instinct may be to go, oh no, Pinnacle's not able to process these quickly. Let me go take this to another bank so they can process it. Please do not do that. That will cause an even slower slowdown with SBA. You cannot get to PPP loans from round two. So that could cause big review problems for you and actually slow the process down even more for you to get approval if SBA sees 2 loans in process at one time from different banks for the same business owners. So just know it's normal. Every bank across the country is having this same exact process that they're going through. So it's not different from one bank to another as far as the speed under which we can process them. There's not another bank in the country that has a fast track process as well. So I would definitely, if you guys check our social media out there for Pinnacle. We had a great article this week that was out on PPP fraud, and that is one of the things we're seeing with PPP. There's a lot of fraud lenders out there that you might find on the internet that say send your PPP application to us, and we're a fast track provider with SBA, and we'll process it, very quickly for you. There is no fast track process with PPP. It is what it is. Every bank that's a preferred lender that can do this type of loan, we're all using the same process. We're all using the same system for SBA. So if you ever have any questions on if the bank you've submitted your PPP loan through is a legitimate SBA lender, the SBA website, sba.gov, has a list of banks out there that are approved to offer the PPP program. And so if you're getting email solicitations from some people that say they can process these and they're not one of the banks on that list, that is a scam. And we have had people, none of the banks should be collecting a fee from you as well to process your PPP loan application. So that's would be a big red flag to me if somebody's sending you an email saying, send me $200 and I'll fast track your PPP application. That's fraud. That's a scam. The banks are not allowed to collect a fee. No processor is allowed to collect a fee for processing a PPP loan. So those are just a few tidbits to be wary of if you feel like you've submitted your application somewhere that's not a legitimate PPP lender. So from Pinnacle's standpoint, our Pinnacle portal that you received an email from us for, that's the only way to submit a PPP loan application here at Pinnacle. So nobody should be soliciting you from other sources on sending them information to try to get a PPP application from you. Just know that some of those people, they really are just trying to get a hold of your personal information so they can sell it out there on the internet to other people. So that's just a little warning there about fraud. Anytime government offers up free money, there's going to be people out there that are going to find a way to take advantage of it and make a buck themselves. And that comes at the risk of business owners out there that give their information away without checking those verified sources.
Yeah, that's very helpful, Lane. As fast and furious as it was the first time, I know a lot of people were anxious to get their application in, and certainly would be enticing if somebody came along promising to get it in through the process very quick. But it's wise to investigate and make sure that we know who you're dealing with. So, Lane, thanks for making time with us today. We would encourage everybody that participated here, if you'll go out to the website, pnfp.com/PPP. That is where we're providing all of the information that we have it and updating that site very regularly. This webinar, along with all the previous webinars, will be available there, as well as our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/watchpnfp. You can go there. You can rewatch this webinar and the other webinars to get all the information that you need. And then as we receive more information, I'm sure that we'll be back with more information and provide it to you in a format that's easy for you to ask us some questions and get the answers that you need. So we're thankful that you all spent some time with us this afternoon. Lane, good luck. Thanks for making time with us, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Brian. Great to see everyone today.
Y'all have a great day.